Lipids or fats have loads of different functions in living organisms. They're used as an energy store, they make cell membranes, they're used for insulation, protection, waterproofing. They're made of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, just like carbohydrates are, but they have a much lower proportion of oxygen. So, what are we going to learn about in this lesson? We're going to learn about something called a triglyceride and how that is formed. We're going to learn the difference between different types of lipids, saturated and unsaturated. We're also going to look at this structure of lipids in more detail and how that helps with the idea of energy storage, waterproofing and insulation. And we'll look at a particular type of lipid called a phospholipid, which are used to make cell membranes. So, fats and oils are groups of lipids. Fats are solid at room temperature, oils are liquid at room temperature. They are made of two types of molecule, glycerol and fatty acids. So, fatty acids, these molecules vary in length and bond structure, but they always have the acid bit, the carboxylic acid group at one end, the COOH. If the carbon atoms in the fatty acid are all joined together with single bonds, it's what we call a saturated fatty acid. If they have one or more double bonds between the carbon atoms, then it's what we call an unsaturated fatty acid. One double bond, monounsaturated fatty acid, more than one, polyunsaturated fatty acid. To make a fat or an oil, you need to combine one of those glycerols with one or more fatty acids. And to do this, you've got to do something called a condensation reaction. Now, we're going to come across condensation reactions in lots of the biological molecules that we're going to study. This is the first one we're looking at here, okay? And a condensation reaction removes water, okay? You take water away and you form a new bond. In this case, it's called an ester bond. So we're going to form that between the OH of the glycerol and the OH of one of the fatty acids. You take away water and you got your new ester bond there. Now, this process is known as esterification and can happen up to 3 times on each glycerol to form a triglyceride. You can then split these bonds again using the opposite of a condensation reaction, which we call a hydrolysis reaction, where you put water back in. The function and behavior of the fat depends on which fatty acids are used to make the triglycerides. There's another type of lipid molecule you need to know about, which are very, very important, called a phospholipid. So this is slightly different from a triglyceride because instead of having 3 fatty acids, you take one of those fatty acids away and you add a phosphate group on instead. Now, these molecules are used to make cell membranes because they're very special properties. That phosphate head is attracted to water. It's what we call hydrophilic, but the 2 tails repel water. They are hydrophobic. Hydrocarbons like that, long hydrocarbon chains, fatty acids, hydrophobic, don't like water. The phosphate, though, can interact with water. It is polar. Okay, this means that when you put these molecules in water, they will arrange themselves in a very specific way. The phosphate heads that like water will go close to the water, and the tails will do whatever they can to get away from water. And what happens is they form something called a phospholipid bilayer, with the heads on the outside and then a layer of tails pointing inwards on themselves, avoiding the water. And this is how all membranes are made. In all living cells, doesn't matter whether it's bacteria, plant, animal, they've all got these membranes and they're all made in the same way. So you're going to study these in more detail later on in the course. So I mentioned in the introduction that lipids have lots of functions. You need to know about a few of them. The first one is an energy store. Now, triglycerides store about 3 times as much energy as the same mass of carbohydrates, so really good as an energy store. Waterproofing. As you know, oil and water don't really mix. Lipids are hydrophobic, so many organisms use a layer of oil or wax on their surface to keep out water. And insulation, they're very, very good at keeping in heat energy, therefore they're used to insulate animals, for example, the blubber in whales.